An abortion is the termination of a pregnancy through removing the embryo or fetus from the womb. These sound like some complicated words, so I'll go through them. You'll notice that I didn't use the word baby. This is because people differentiate between the baby that exists after birth and the fetus that exists in the womb before birth. An embryo is the cluster of cells that grows into the fetus that later becomes a baby. So until about 8 weeks, you would call it an embryo. Then after that, you would call it a fetus. That's not what they look like, but it's the best I can do. And then later, after birth, you would call it a baby on the whole. In 1861, UK law changed so that anyone performing an abortion or trying to self-abort would be given a life sentence in prison. As a result, most doctors refused to perform abortions. Thousands of women resorted to backstreet abortionists. These were usually untrained surgeons, in inverted commas, who performed the operation in unhygienic locations like ordinary houses, and many women treated in this way died because the equipment was very unhygienic or just plain dangerous. Between 1923 and 1933, it's estimated that about 15% of maternal deaths were due to illegal abortions. This is obviously extremely high. After years of campaigning, the Abortion Act was passed in 1967, and abortions became legal. This certainly does not mean that people all agree with the law, but for feminists campaigning for women's rights in this area, it was a huge victory. Abortion is controversial because people disagree about when life begins and ends, and over when someone becomes a person. This is known as the problem of personhood. If you're described as a person, it means that you have significance or some kind of value that needs to be respected by law. The law in the UK permits abortion up to the 24th week of pregnancy. It is only allowed if 2 doctors agree, and it must be proven that the physical or mental health of the mother is at risk. For instance, if the child is likely to be born with serious disabilities or disease, or there will be a serious effect on other children in the family, then abortion may be considered. As you have probably already worked out, this is pretty broad, so most people who want to have an abortion can get one in this country. Abortions may be carried out after 24 weeks if the mother's life is at risk, or the fetus is found to have severe handicaps that couldn't be picked up earlier. Some people argue that the limit should be lowered because medical advances have made it more likely that fetuses who are born prematurely will survive outside of the mother's womb. In fact, 2014 is the first year that a fetus was born and survived as a baby at 24 weeks. This is becoming even more true as we progress because clever incubators and doctors are managing to keep babies born prematurely alive with fewer complications, meaning the age of viability, which is where the fetus is said to be able to survive outside of the womb, is constantly changing. Here are 2 examples then of the debate in pictures. Some people who are pro-choice believe that women should have the choice over whether or not they have an abortion. They might do this for financial reasons, because they feel unable to cope physically or emotionally, or because they're not happy with how the fetus was conceived. In cases of rape, for instance, many girls and women opt to have the fetus aborted. There has been a huge rise in abortions in recent years, particularly as women are having more sexual relationships without being married or financially stable and want to continue work, for instance, or even school. Often people, who are often religious, argue that because life is sacred, you cannot place a value on it. You can't decide whether a fetus or mother have a poor quality of life and make a decision based on this. They believe that both fetus and mother have equal rights, hence the emotive picture from this side of the debate as well. These individuals are described as being pro-life because they believe that life should be preserved no matter what. They are absolutist in their ideas about it, whereas people who are pro-choice believe that the relative circumstances must be taken into account. For your exam, you will need to know what the abortion law is in the UK and what the difference is between pro-life and pro-choice views, as well as quality and sanctity of life. Why is the issue of abortion often seen as being a feminist issue, i.e. one that affects many women's rights? And why do some people think that the fetus has just as many rights as the mother?